Hey everyone, and welcome to Skillcapped. I'm the King Live, and today we're going to be taking a look into the world of one of Valorant's best professional players, Liquid Scream. Scream is an incredible player, most known for his aim, and is widely considered one of the best Reyna players in the game. We're not going to be breaking down specific Reyna tactics that Scream uses today though. Specifically, what we're going to be focusing on is what makes Scream different from other professional players, and how being aware of these differences can help you improve your own play. So strap in as we get into the 5 things that Scream does to carry that you don't, but before we do, let's introduce our question of the day, which is, which duelist do you think is the best for carrying in Valorant? Scream seems to prefer Reyna most of the time, but Jett is an incredibly common pick as well, and maybe some of you even favor Raze, Phoenix, or even Yoru for carrying at times. Be sure to let us know in the comments below. Moving into the biggest thing that stands out to me the most about Scream though, and this isn't something that is going to come naturally for most players. Scream is an incredible leader when he wants to be, but the big thing that seems different with Scream versus other players that I've seen is Scream seems to set his expectations for his teammates before the round very clearly. For many duelists, they will just silently play their part and get frustrated when their teammates don't do what they're supposed to. The thing is, if you don't tell your teammates how to help you, they have to guess how to help you. And when you watch Scream, when he asks his teammates to execute a strat, he does it with such authority that it feels as though he is setting the expectations for what he wants his teammates to be doing, not only for just that round, but giving them an understanding of how he is going to play and how they can support each other.
Follow me, my brothers. Aggressive. Jett, Raze, aggressive.
Come on, let's go! Careful now. Target down.
Market, man. That on me.
That's how you take a side. That's how you take a side. That's all I want to say, bro. That's all I want to say, brother.
You'll notice when Scream asks his Sova to drone out of a position 2 rounds in a row, the Sova just starts doing it every time they push that spot. This is because Scream has set that expectation for what he wants his teammates to be doing when they push. And it's not even just with Sova players. He'll ask Omen to blind. He'll ask Raze to grab ultimate orbs. He'll have the breach flash for him. Keep in mind, not only are players bad at using their utility to begin with, but they are also not capable of reading your mind. What is an obvious place to drone for you might not be so obvious for somebody else. Most players in Valorant aren't bad solo players. The thing that holds them back is normally they are really bad team players. If you're being a good teammate and leading with authority, it will not only help your team work together better, but it will give your team more confidence in the game. The most important thing to remember here though is you want to lead your team without coming across as being bossy. You can lead with authority while still being respectful of your teammates, and always try to be affirming after rounds. Don't ever try to make people feel bad for losing a round. Scream has a very dominant personality, and he definitely leads games with authority, but he's not a jerk, because nobody wants to play with a jerk. Try to set the expectations for what you want your teammates to do. Where do you want them to drone? What do you want them to smoke? If you ask them to do this multiple rounds in a row, they will start to get the picture and become more aware of how they can assist you in the future. Now, before we move on to the second thing that sets Scream apart from other players, if you guys are serious about improving, I highly recommend you check out skillcap.com. We have up-to-date lineups, courses on how to improve with all agents, Smurf commentaries where a higher ranked player walks you through how to carry in your rank, and so much more. Come join over 500,000 satisfied members, improve that KDA, and get the rank that you've always wanted at skillcap.com. Link in the description below. Moving on to our second thing that really stood out to me from watching Scream versus every other professional player, he seems to always be practicing his aim even between rounds and just trying to always keep his head in the game. And if he's not practicing his aim, he's jumping around and practicing his movement, likely trying to just keep himself warmed up and ready to go. Now, I'm not going to say that doing this is going to make you have as good as aim as Scream, but there is something to be said that Scream likely has some of the best aim of Valorant, and he's constantly tracing his teammates pre-round and practicing his shots. Now, when I'm talking about aim training between rounds, of course I'm not suggesting that you boot up aim labs and play it while you're dead. That would probably take a little bit of a load on your PC. However, even just tracing your teammates as Scream does can be an excellent exercise for keeping your brain and hands active within the game. There is so much downtime in a game like Valorant, and sometimes you'll literally go 2 to 3 rounds without gunfighting a single target. After spending all of that time before you queue into a game warming up, you may just go into a match and literally not see an enemy for the first 3 rounds, and that's really going to affect how warmed up you actually are. Now, mostly we are just focusing on how Scream practices his aim between rounds, but another thing I really want to comment on, especially for lower ranked viewers, is practicing your movement pre-rounds. Practicing your bunny hops and your strafes is something that a lot of lower ranked players neglect entirely, but will make a massive difference in your gunfights. When I spectate many lower ranked players, it's very apparent that they don't feel confident in their movement, and it's definitely holding them back. This doesn't have to do with in-game practice, but if you haven't already attempted to do the jumping puzzle in the practice range, I highly recommend you at least give it a shot. The truth is, you should at least be able to get through the first half of this jumping puzzle relatively easily, and if you can't, you may want to give it some practice. Being able to confidently master your movement will really help you with overall mouse control and pick up the pace in your game so that you're not constantly walking around looking like a bot. Moving on though, another thing I noticed from our friend Scream is that he seems to like to force up on third round rather than playing for a bonus. Many players opt to keep their eco weapons from the second round after winning, but you'll notice in this round Scream actually forces up a Vandal in an attempt to keep his team's momentum rolling. It's not like they just leave the Spectre on the ground. Scream does give it to his allied Sage, but I mainly just want to point out the effort was made to keep his team ahead. If they all try to eco here, although it might be the most efficient move, it also risks hurting their momentum on offense, which is generally not something that you want to do. Another thing important to point out in this round though is how Scream keeps his distance the whole time. His Vandal is best used with some distance between him and the enemies, and his main goal is to cover for his teammates as they try to get the spike down, and then they can play post plant as best as he can. If he gets too aggressive with his team's only real rifle, he risks losing it, and it really makes more sense for the Spectre players to be the ones playing closer a bit more. Because of Scream's force up here and some clean shots, he's able to secure a third round for his team off the back of an aggressive Vandal buy. Momentum is a massive deal in Valorant, and I'm not saying you should always force up rather than bonusing, but if you're feeling confident in your shots and you believe you can win the third round as well, it may be best to force and try not to give your opponents the chance to get back into the game. Moving on to something that you also saw in the last round though that Scream is excellent at is his tap firing. This is incredibly common among Vandal users, and Scream is no different. The thing that does stand out though for Scream is just how crazy accurate he is. It only takes one bullet with a Vandal to kill a target, so Scream takes his time and makes sure that every shot counts. Even when Scream is fighting at close range, he prioritizes tap firing and counter strafing to make himself more difficult to hit. It is incredibly rare to see Scream go into a full spray in Valorant. He prioritizes precision more than anything, and this is something I really encourage for almost every single player who is learning to play Valorant at a higher level. The problem isn't necessarily that spraying is bad, it's more that spraying for the wrong reasons is bad. So many players commit to a spray after missing their first few shots in an attempt to make up for those first few shots that they missed. However, the problem with this is the first few shots in the spray are the most accurate shots in the spray. So if you're starting out your spray by missing when the shots are the most accurate, then you're trying to adjust as they become less accurate, and that's when you end up spraying 30 bullets and only hitting 3 times. Generally, your goal when gunfighting should be to fire off burst shots at your enemies, aiming primarily for headshots. I would not recommend committing to a spray unless there are multiple targets clumped up ahead of you, and when I say clumped up, I mean practically stacked up on top of each other. As even if you're fighting multiple targets, it's still normally better to prioritize counter strafing to make yourself more difficult to hit. That being said, Scream showcases that it's not really ever necessary to have to spray as long as you're aiming for those headshots and focusing primarily on burst firing and counter strafing to make yourself more difficult to hit. Scream is the king of one-taps because he doesn't panic with his shots. He's precise, and when he misses, he calmly attempts to recorrect. Be like Scream. Moving on to the last thing I noticed though, from watching Scream play in competitive, it seemed that he really favored these sorts of death ball pushes on offense. It was very rare to watch Scream's team split up on pretty much any map, and I've watched him through a number of different games. The truth is, there's very little strategy or tactics that take place in Valorant competitive, and sometimes the best move is just to hit a site and hit it hard. As I mentioned before, Scream does an excellent job of making sure that his team knows where to use their utility to give his team the best chance. And at times they do opt to run fakes just to keep the enemies honest, but for the most part, they don't do anything crazy. When playing in competitive, it can be difficult when your teammates start doing their own thing because most of the time they don't know how to safely take territory without your help. Teammates will just walk out into the middle of the map with no smoke and get off 2 seconds into the round. That is what these deathball strats avoid. Just hard pushing a site as a team and coordinating who is flashing where will easily avoid any sort of solo deaths on the map, and although it does have its obvious weaknesses, oftentimes defenses are far too uncoordinated to deal with this, and it can work work out incredibly well, as you see for Scream. Not only that, but another thing that aids Scream really well with this is it seems he opts to duo queue with friends who also understand how to play the game aggressively and back him up. I know it seems like obvious advice to say, hey, go get a friend to play with, but when you have a friend who can play this aggressively with you effectively, it can be a nightmare to go against. Lastly, remember, if you want to improve that KDA, win more gunfights, and get the rank that you've always wanted, then be sure to check out skillcap.com. Link in the description below. Scream is a legend of a player in Valorant, and it really shows in his gameplay. One of the things I love about watching Scream the most, though, is just his personality. Not only is he a strong player, but he's also pretty funny at times, so if you haven't checked out his stream yet, I highly recommend that you do so. Also, if you guys haven't already, be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel down below. It really does help us out. And don't forget to answer our question of the day, which is, which agent do you think is the best duelist in Valorant? As always, I'm the King Live, and we here at Skillcapped want to thank you all for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.